Hey everybody, welcome back to Let's Talk. My name is John, and today here on the channel, we're going to be talking about 1939's The Roaring Twenties and its brand new Criterion Collection 4K Blu-ray that just came out. So The Roaring Twenties was directed by Raoul Walsh. It stars James Cagney, Humphrey Bogart, Priscilla Lane, and Gladys George. And this film is widely considered one of the greatest gangster films of all time. It's had a huge influence on a bunch of other gangster films. And of course, this film features some of the greatest actors of all time in James Cagney and Humphrey Bogart, both giving great world-class performances in this movie. Both of them have very distinct looks, very distinct voices, and they just carry this film phenomenally. A movie that really does feel like something that could have come out now, other than the way the costumes are, the way they talk, because the way they deliver lines, it's very much of the time.
Never say that to me again, do you hear? Never.
But the story itself still rings very true today. Three men meet in a bunker in World War I. All three of them very different guys, all of them having very different personalities. Eddie is the lead though. He really is the guy who takes control. He's the big shot. He's played by James Cagney. You know, he's really the one that's kind of leveling everybody out, because Henry Bogart's character, you know, he's a real hothead and he has a real problem with authority or really anyone speaking up against him. But when they get back to America after the war, Prohibition is going on. They're all just trying to find their way. And Eddie, who's a cab driver, one day he's asked to go into Panama's club, who's played by Gladys George, and deliver her a package. He doesn't know what this package is. He's like, all right, $12, I'll go in there, I'll do it. So he goes inside, delivers the package, and then he gets arrested because it turns out that is gin. So that means that's illegal at the time. He gets a jail sentence. She gets set free because, you know, he falls on that knife for her. And when he gets out, he's like, oh, okay, I'm going to start getting involved in this. I'm going to become a bootlegger. I'm going to start selling liquor. His buddy George decides to get in on the ground floor and like become a partnership, and they start rising up the ranks of the bootleggers, of course pissing off people along the way. But this movie doesn't take place in one moment in time. You know, we start this movie off at the end of World War I, and we end up after the big stock market crash of 1929. So we get to see all of these people's lives play out over that long course of time. Eddie is our main character, but we also get to see George's life play out. We get to see Panama's life play out, and we also get to see the girl Jean, who Eddie absolutely loves, played by Pamela Lane in this movie. But does she love him as much as he loves her? That we have to find out over the course of the film. And because a lot of people probably haven't seen this film, I'm not going to spoil anything for you guys other than to say that this movie is a great gangster film. Does it compare to modern day gangster films or even films like The Godfather from the 1970s? No, absolutely not. Like, even though this is a gangster film, you're not going to see a bunch of blood and guts.
I don't want to get blood on your floor.
You're not going to hear a lot of cursing. You know, this is still a 1939 studio film made by Warner Brothers, coming out of the studio system. So for this movie to be as highbrow as it is and really have some very deep themes dealing with what human beings actually have to go through, why people turn to crime, why people make the decisions that they choose to make. This came out in a time in America where everybody was just very proud to be an American, you know, before World War II, even though it's after World War I, we're in that era, you know, right before the stock market crash, you know, Prohibition is going on, and this came out at a time where they really were knocking what America was doing. And it's really weird that this movie actually slipped in there with all these deep themes, these great characters, and at a time where, you know, movies mostly ended on a happy ending. The ending to this film is very iconic. You could see the influence on this ending on many other films, and they don't send you home happy. And that's really something that I appreciate for a film that came out this long ago. You know, when you compare this film to modern films, yes, it might not hold up. It might not be as enjoyable. But if you could appreciate this film for what it is and when it came out and look at it through that lens, I really think that this is something very, very, very special, and I can see why anyone who discovers this film absolutely loves it. It's 107 minutes, and it is paced great. You know, we're not wasting any time. You really do get connected to these characters. James Cagney and Humphrey Bogart just give great performances, and I really do appreciate Gladys George's performance in this movie. She is great as Pamela. You know, she really does command the scene. I also just love her. She owns this club, and she's just so confident and, you know, obviously speaking like the times.
Get back out of your league, Buster. You're used to traveling around with dames like me.
So she's like calling everybody chumps and just kind of throwing them around. You know, it's just very much of the 1930s and how the world was at the time. And it's just really fun to look back at the era through a modern lens and just see how much the world has changed and how much it hasn't changed in almost 100 years. This movie is still very, very, very good. And I'm sure a lot of people who are watching this video haven't actually seen this film. If you're a fan of gangster films, if you're a fan of movies like Scarface, The Godfather, Goodfellas, you really owe it to yourself to watch this movie. you'll see the influences of this film on all of those other films. I know that Martin Scorsese is a fan of Raoul Walsh, who directed this movie, and you could just see the influence he took from that. Martin Scorsese has never been afraid to wear his influences on his sleeve, and you can totally see that when you watch this film. Also, just a little caveat, when you watch this movie, it takes place in New York, they keep bringing up Mineola, and Mineola here in Long Island is a stop on the Long Island Railroad, so it's something that a lot of people know who live on Long Island, and they must say Mineola at least 20 times in this film, and every time my ears would just perk up, what? Mineola? And the amount of times they bring it up in this movie, I just thought that was really funny, because you just hear it all the time here on Long Island. So it just really stuck out to me, and it might not stick out that much to you guys. But anyway, I'll keep rambling on. Let's talk about this Criterion Collection 4K Blu-ray.
When did you get out? Oh, I get it. Taking advantage of my good nature on New Year's Eve, huh?
Well, here it is, the Criterion Collection 4K Blu-ray of the Roaring Twenties, and the first thing that stood out to me is this beautiful cover art that they threw on this. I absolutely love the cover art on it. Stands out in the crowd. I absolutely love black and white, and throwing some gray on there. I think it's gonna look great. This movie is in black and white.
Do you think so?
So it's the perfect artwork for this. Even though the original movie poster was in color, which is the one that's right over here, I still love this alternative artwork that they created for the Criterion Collection. Absolutely love that. And they gave it to us in the standard Criterion packaging, which I do appreciate after movies like Trainspotting, where they try to go a little bit out of their comfort zone with the packaging. I really appreciate them just giving us the standard Criterion packaging. It's always good. Or whip out the nice digibook packaging. I can always appreciate that as well. But whatever they did with Trainspotting, or what they were trying years ago with Citizen Kane, you know what? You don't have to try that. You have great packaging and you have great artists working on this, and this artwork is fantastic. I just want to point that out right away. I didn't actually buy this at full price. Criterion had a flash sale this past Tuesday, and that's actually when I bought this on 4K Blu-ray. Even though it was just released, it was already 50% off in that flash sale for 24 hours, so I was able to grab this for $24.99 US dollars, and I really do think that that is the perfect price for this, because full price, I don't know if you're going to be getting everything that you could possibly want. So when you come inside, it is a 2-disc set, so you're going to have one 4K Blu-ray and one Blu-ray. Both of them will feature the film, but all your extras are going to be on that Blu-ray, and there really isn't much of them. There's 2 interviews, a commentary track, and the commentary track, which I didn't really listen to, I just ran it to make sure it worked. It's fine, but it's, it's not done by anyone who's involved in the film. Obviously, the movie came out in 1939. Anyone who acted in this movie, the director, they're all long dead, so you don't really expect anything from them. But it would have been cool to get a director nowadays who was really influenced by this film, maybe get an interview with Martin Scorsese or something like that, or even have a film historian looking back on this, or a bunch of other directors, maybe make a nice making of documentary for this film. But again, it's the Roaring Twenties, so I don't know how many people are in love with this film. Even when you go down its Wikipedia page, there really isn't too much information on the film. It's a studio release from the 1930s. Warner Brothers was pumping out picture after picture after picture. Yes, this one stands out now that we could look back on it, but it's still a film that's almost 100 years old, so of course there's probably not as much information as you would want in comparison to a movie that was made in the 70s or 80s, or even in the 60s, where you probably have a ton of information, and you probably still have actors and producers who were alive at the time still floating around. But the extras, I have to be honest, aren't that impressive at all, especially when you compare it to other Criterion releases or studios like Arrow Video or Scream Factory who load them up with extras. Now this feels more like a studio release, which is a little bit disappointing. And you also get one audio track, which is to be expected. Again, you kind of got to grade this on a curve because this movie came out in 1939, so you have to kind of compare it to how it looked in 1939. Now obviously I wasn't around in 1939. This is the first time I've ever seen the film, so I've never seen it in any other way than when I looked at it on this Blu-ray and 4K Blu-ray. So this is how I came to the film. But you have to imagine that this film was not in the greatest shape in the past, and it probably didn't sound that great. And the only audio track that you're going to get on both the Blu-ray and the 4K Blu-ray is an LPCM mono track. Again, that's something that's to be expected. All we're looking for is, no clicks, no pops. Everything comes in crisp and clear. You can hear everybody. Nothing is mixed bad, and everything is mixed awesome. The only thing with this movie is there's a lot of narration in it. It's of the time, and all that stuff does come in very clear. Everyone's dialogue does come in very crisp and clear. There are certain scenes where you might hear a slight hiss under everything, but honestly, again, that's something that would be expected, especially for how they were recording audio at the time. And honestly, it's nothing that will take you out of it. You just might hear it if you're looking for it. But if you're just sitting there enjoying the film, you might not notice anything. Just understand that it's the kind of audio track that isn't going to be hitting all of your channels. It's going to be coming out of your front speakers, and that is really it. So all we're looking for is for this audio track to be very, very clear, and you can understand everything that is going on, and you can. So there is no complaints about the audio track. But what everybody is probably worrying about are those visuals, and these visuals are fantastic. Again, if you were to take this and like compare it to another black and white 4K Blu-ray like The Night of the Hunter, or even Citizen Kane, which came out 3 years after that. But Citizen Kane is one of those films that changed the game when it comes to cinematography, so it's not fair to compare the Roaring Twenties to Citizen Kane. And this movie, when you're watching it, the focus of the film, it's very soft, so nothing is going to look too sharp. So again, it's a 1939 film, I'm going to keep saying that, and that's just how they shot it at the time. But the film itself also does make great use of shadows, and because we get HDR10 and Dolby Vision, even when you compare that Blu-ray to the 4K Blu-ray, the 4K Blu-ray is going to look brighter, and it hits those deep blacks better than the Blu-ray could possibly do. Even though that Blu-ray, if you were just to buy the Blu-ray, you want to save a little bit of money, the Blu-ray itself is really solid. The only thing you're going to be upgrading when you go to 4K Blu-ray are the visuals. And again, you know, if you were to compare the two, yes, the 4K Blu-ray is better, but for a film like this, which has definitely never been seen in this condition, the Blu-ray itself is still really good, and the 4K Blu-ray is just enhancing all of that. But again, if you're looking at this and you're looking for some amazing shots, not every shot in this film is beautiful, but there are certain shots, including the very end of this movie, that are just eye-popping, and I absolutely love how gorgeous the end of this film looks on 4K Blu-ray. There are some scenes, it could be a little bit inconsistent at times, and again, it's of the time, so that's going to happen. Some of the transitions might surprise some people, especially if they're not used to watching films from the 1930s or 1940s. But either way, the visuals on this are absolutely stunning. Criterion cleaned this up way better than I ever could have imagined they would. Again, I haven't seen this film in any other fashion, but I was expecting this to look a little bit rough, mainly because it's a film that's this old. It's not one that really gets talked about as much with other classic films like Casablanca or Citizen Kane. It doesn't really come up that often, other than in cinephile crowds, or maybe you've read it on some lists. So for a movie like this, I didn't have the highest of expectations when it came to the visuals, but I was absolutely floored by how good they came out. Now, I was watching it with my wife, who isn't a big fan of older films like this, and she was actually commenting. She's like, oh, you know, it's really hard to see the materials on their clothes because of the black and white. You know, and I was trying to explain to her, you know, that's of the time. All the movies that came out around this time, you're going to have a hard time with that, mainly because of the lenses and the cameras. You know, we can only sharpen it up so much. And then if we do kind of change it around too much, then it doesn't even look how the film was ever intended to look. So from an outsider's perspective, I can understand why you might not think this is the greatest looking 4K Blu-ray. But if you look at it in a bubble and I look at it from when this film came out, I really do think that you're going to be very impressed with these visuals, and they are definitely the standout of this entire release, especially if you were to compare it to the extras. So really what stood out to me were those visuals. The packaging is fantastic. I really do love the artwork on here. You know, the audio track is good. The extras are disappointing. So overall, I do think if you were to able to buy this in the Criterion 50% off sale, maybe wait for the Barnes & Noble's 50% off sale, that $25 range for this 4K Blu-ray is definitely worth it, or $20 for the regular Blu-ray. I would definitely say that is your best option. I do not think that this is something that's worth it at the full price, especially if you were comparing it to other Criterion 4K Blu-ray releases. I do definitely think this is in the lower end of them, just because we don't get as many extras. But if you are a fan of this film and you've been dying to revisit the Roaring Twenties, even at full price, it might be worth it. But if it was up to me, and in my honest opinion, I would say at the 50% off price of $25, I think that's the sweet spot. And how would I grade this on a score of 1 to 10? I would give the Roaring Twenties a really solid 8 out of 10. It's definitely worth your time and money, just not at full price. And before we get out of here today, it is Monday, and that means it's time for our digital code giveaway. In Friday's video and every video we put out on Friday, I'm going to ask you guys 2 digital code giveaway questions. All you have to do is answer one in the comment section below, and as long as you did that, you come back to this video right here every single Monday. We put your name on a magic wheel, we spin that bad boy 2 times, the 2 names it lands on, and they have their choice of the digital codes that you've seen on your screen before you today. And I asked you guys, what was your favorite Denis Villeneuve film, and what was your favorite film epic? And we got answers all over the place when it came to film epics. Epics were really big in the 1950s and 1960s with the David Lean epics, and then, you know, it kind of fell off a little bit, and I feel like Denis Villeneuve and even Christopher Nolan are bringing back that epic scale. There's just something about seeing those beautiful vistas and actually being able to show the full scope of something that you can really only capture when you shoot on location. It's just not the same when you shoot in front of a big screen. When you shoot a real epic, yes, you're dealing with the elements, but the final product just comes out beautiful. So when it comes to Denis Villeneuve films, a lot of people were picking Dune, a lot of people were picking Prisoners, which spoke right to my heart, but my favorite Denis Villeneuve film, and it's a review you guys are going to get tomorrow for the 4K Blu-ray, is Sicario. I've just always been blown away by that movie. The audio design, the visuals, the actual story that they're trying to tell, and again, it's Denis Villeneuve, so you know it looks absolutely perfect. And it might not be his best film, but it's still my favorite film, I think, ever since Sicario. I think he's only improved on his craft, and honestly, Dune 2 is probably his best when it comes to the visuals. As much as I love Blade Runner 2049, there is just something very special about Dune Part 2, and I can't wait to watch Dune Part 1 and Dune Part 2 back to back on 4K Blu-ray. I would have loved to do that in theaters. I didn't see them doing that anywhere, but can you just imagine watching that as one big epic film? But anyway, I'll just keep rambling on, so let's spin this magic wheel and see who our two lucky winners are this week. Gonna remove you, MD. Spit again. Austin Powers. All right, congratulations to MD and Austin Powers. You guys have both won in the past, and to claim your digital code, make sure you reach out to me at letstalkentmt@gmail.com, or you can always reach me at the artist formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. Just direct message me and let me know which of the digital codes you want. As long as the other winner didn't take that code, that digital code is all yours. And both of those were really close to like almost ties, so if you feel like it was a little bit unfair that the Magic Wheel didn't pick you this week, I completely understand. It was so close. You guys can reach out to me as well. And if I didn't put your name on the Magic Wheel for some odd reason, that's not on you, that's on me. So also make sure you reach out to me so I can give you a digital code. And if you entered the giveaway and you didn't win, make sure you guys come back to this Friday's video and we are going to do this all over again. We just really appreciate you checking out the video and entering the giveaway. It really means the world to us. And if you want to continue to support Let's Talk, the best way to support Let's Talk is just by simply liking this video, subscribing to the channel, turning notifications on, sharing the video. But if you want to take your support of Let's Talk to the next level, we do have channel memberships. We have a friends of the channel tier. We have a producers tier. That's where you're going to find John Doe Juggalo, Jason Martin, Mr. Smelly Potato. We also have a directors tier. That's where you're going to find Frank's Media and Reviews, who has a great YouTube channel as well. But if you got no money to throw our way, we don't mind at all. We just really do appreciate you guys checking out this video. And if you enjoyed it, get out in those streets and tell your friends about us. And then we'll be seeing you around.